Good morning. This is Unit 2, Day 1 notes. We're going to look a little bit more at functions and specifically quadratic functions. So I'm just going to define a polynomial for you. A polynomial is a function with x with degree n, where the leading coefficient is a sub n. So I wrote it down. F of x equals, and there's usually a coefficient, x to the n, and then it decreases. X to the n minus 1. A sub n minus 2, x to the n minus 2, and it keeps going until we get to 0. So a sub 2x squared, a sub 1x, and then plus a sub 0. And x to the 0 is just 1, so I don't even have to write it. It says a polynomial function of 0 and low degrees. So when we have our function is equal to 0, the name of it is just the 0 function. It's called 0. And the degree is undefined. It's only defined if we have an x in there, and this one has no x. So this one is f of x equal to a. A is going to be a constant, a number. If we have like y equals 2, this is called our constant. And the degree is 0. There's still no x there, so the degree is 0. Now we're going to look at when we have ax plus b, or mx plus b, something like that. So a number times x plus b. This is a linear function. And our degree is 1. Our degree is the coefficient of the biggest x. So to the first power, so the degree is 1. Not the coefficient, the exponent of the biggest x. And then we're going to have a quadratic. Remember, a quadratic has a degree. The biggest exponent is 2, so my degree is 2. The average rate of change is also known as the slope. My slope, or the average rate of change, is our function at the second one minus our function at the first one, all over b minus a. We also know another formula for slope. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember, it is rise over run, and the rise are the change in y values have to go first. The change in y's can be written as this, delta y, y minus y. The change in x's can be written like this, x minus x, delta x. The triangle is delta. Identifying a polynomial function. So this one is asking us to find the equation. If the equation is not a polynomial, explain why. Find the degree and then the leading coefficient. Alrighty, so the degree of this one is actually going to be the 4th degree, even though it's second. The leading, or the biggest exponent, which is 4. And the leading coefficient is going to be the number in front of that x, which is negative 9. This one actually is not a polynomial function because this is going to be a fraction. The degree is going to be a fraction. So since it's going to be a fraction degree, this is not a polynomial. I want you guys to try the other two. Pause the video and try these now. Degree and leading coefficient. Example 2 is just asking you to find an equation of a line. This is a linear function. Going through this point, when we put in input negative 4, we get 9. So negative 4, 9 is a point. And 0, 3 is a point. You can go ahead and label your x's and y's. X, y, x, y. We need a point and we need the slope in order to find the equation of a line. The slope is x minus x over y minus, or y minus y over x minus x. I'm going to use 3 first, minus 9 over since I started with 3, I have to start with 0 on the bottom. 0 minus negative 4. If you did the opposite, that is perfectly fine. 3 minus 9 is going to give us negative 6 over 0 minus negative 4 is 4. And that will simplify to negative 3 over 2. This is my slope. Now I just have to substitute it in with one of these points. And remember, the equation of a line is, we can use y equals mx plus b. That's the form they want it in anyways. So y equals m negative 3 over 2x plus, this is already 0, 3. This tells me that it hits the y-axis at 3, so it'll be plus 3. If not, I would have to plug it into a different form of this equation of a line. Alrighty, different forms of these equations. General form is only when a is greater than 0, and it is ax plus by plus c equals 0. The vertical line we know is x equals a number, maybe a. A horizontal line is when y equals a number. The slope-intercept form is what we just used. And this is the one that we'd have to plug it into if we did not have the y-intercept, which we usually don't. And this is the one that we're going to use often. Y minus y equals the slope times x minus x. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and skip this one. They're just asking you to do the same thing and then put them into the different forms. A quadratic function and their graphs. Now, quadratics are very important. We're going to go over these often. It says a quadratic function is a polynomial function of degree 2. It'll be x squared. The shape of the graph is called a parabola. Characteristics of a quadratic. The standard form is something like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We're going to learn how to complete the square to get the vertex form, which is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. My vertex in this form is positive h, positive k. Okay, we're changing the sign of this one, but not this one. And I can usually find this by, I have a formula. It's a trick. I don't know. We're going to use this. It's a little trick for you guys. I don't know if you've seen this. It's negative b over 2a is my x value, and my y value is the output when we plug that into our function, f at negative b over 2a, whatever our y value is. Okay, the axis of symmetry is always x equals h. It opens upward when a is greater than 0, my coefficient in front of that x squared, but it opens downwards when a is less than 0. It cannot equal 0. My y-intercept is going to be when we substitute in 0 for x. And my x-intercepts is when we set the whole equation equal to 0. And this is what we usually have to do. We have to factor to figure this out. I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to write down this formula. It's called the quadratic formula. You've seen it in Algebra 2. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's like Pop Goes the Weasel. Okay. Or you can factor it. Usually we'll try to factor first, but if worst comes to worst, we'll use the quadratic formula. Transformation of a parabola. Okay, I just wanted to write this first. So this negative is going to reflect it across the x-axis. So our regular function is a parabola facing up. The negative, we're going to reflect it across the x-axis, so it's going to be facing down. The 1/4 means we're going to vertically shrink it by a factor of 4. Alrighty. This negative x minus 2 means instead of going to the left 2, we're actually going to shift it to the right 2. So I'm going to say this is called a translation. And we're going to say to the right 2. And this translation also, we're going to move it up 3. Up 3. That's it. So I'm going to kind of derive this for you real quick. It says expand vertex form to discover the relationships to the standard form. So this is my vertex form, and they just want us to expand it. So when we're squaring a binomial, there's 2 terms in here, x and negative h. We have to actually multiply them by each other. So it's going to be f of x equals parentheses x minus h times x minus h, and then plus the k. Not changing that. Now when I FOIL this, I'm going to get a, and then this is x squared, right? X times x. O is negative xh, but this is also negative xh. So this is minus 2xh, and then negative h times negative h is actually plus h squared plus k. Now I have to distribute this a into my trinomial. So this is a x squared minus 2a xh. I'm going to I want the x's last, so a hx plus a h squared plus k. Now, this is a. So I'm just going to bring this down. Y equals a x squared. Now, this has an x, right? These terms don't have x's. These 2 terms don't have x's. So this is my b. And do you see that this is a negative right here? My formula says plus bx. So this is b right here. b equals negative 2ah. I'm just deriving this for you. You can believe me. And then this, rest of this, ah squared k, is going to be my c, plus c. So my h, when we are trying to find, remember we want our h and your k to put it into vertex form. I can solve for h here by saying this is negative b and then divided by 2a. Just solve for h. You'll see that this is h equals negative b over 2a. Remember, your x value is your h, the center, and your y value, the center for the y value of the vertex, is going to be the k. So this is your x value, and this is your y value. I'm going to skip this. We're going to go over completing the square. Okay, I wrote it out. I'm going to go over it quickly, and then I'm going to show you what it means. As long as a is 1, then all we have to do is isolate the variable, or the constant. Move the c off to the side. What we're going to do is take b, the one in front of the x. We're going to divide it by 2, and then square it. Whatever this number is, we're going to add that value and put it right here. And then we have to subtract it from c. We can't just add something random to this equation without subtracting it from c. If a is not 1, you have to multiply it by a, because you're actually multiplying it by a. Then you have to subtract that same number from c. And then you'll factor it. The factoring will be really easy because it's this number before you square it. I know that sounds really complicated, but I'm going to show you what I mean right here. So I'm going to factor this, put it in vertex form. This number is not 1, so it's not going to be a equals 1. It's a equals 2. I have to factor out a 2 from here. There cannot be a coefficient in front of the x squared. So 2 parentheses, still x squared, minus 8 divided by 2 is 4x. and then plus, I'm going to leave a space, and I'm not factoring the 2 out from the 11. I'm putting that on the other side of the parentheses, or the, parentheses, so plus 11. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the b term, which is actually a negative number this time. It's negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2. I have to do that first and then square it. That's my formula. Divided by 2 and then square it. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, okay? But when I square it, it becomes a positive number. But I need this number. This is my number I'm going to need in a minute. So I don't want to skip this step. But negative 2 squared is 4, right? So that is a number I'm going to plug in here. This is 4. But I'm not really adding 4 or random 4 to this equation. What I'm really going to do, if I had actually distributed this, I would actually be adding a 8 to this equation. So if I'm going to add a random 8, 2 times 4 is 8, then I have to subtract 8 also from the c, or the constant value. And that's it. Now to factor it, it's super easy. It's 2 parentheses x. If this number is a negative number, it's going to be minus, and then this number right here that we, before we squared it. So it's going to be x minus 2. Or you can say this is because this is why it's minus right here, minus 2. And then we have to put the square root on the outside of the parentheses. And then combine your like terms. A positive 11 minus 8 is 3. Make sure I'm right. That's it. Y equals, that's the completed square. If you FOIL this, and then just distribute the 2, and then at the end add 3, I promise you, you'll get the same answer. Okay? I'll do this in class again to make sure you guys understand. Takes practice. Reread the steps. Okay, let's try it again. I'm going to, you guys can use your graphing calculator or Desmos to graph this, but I'm actually going to go over how to complete the square. Use the completed square to graph. Okay, good. So I'm going to write it down first. Y equals, you can put f of x equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. I just want it all right here. Okay, I'm going to factor out the 2. X squared plus 4 divided by 2 is 2x. Leave some space. And then minus 1. I'm not factoring out the 2 from that. Okay. I always take the term in front of the x, which in this case is 2. Positive 2. My formula is b divided by 2 squared. Don't skip any steps. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I need this number in a minute. Squared. This is my important number when I'm factoring. All right, but 1 squared is 1. I'm going to plug in 1, but this is not the actual number I'm plugging in. I'm actually adding a random 2 times 1, which is 2. If I'm going to add 2, then I've got to subtract 2 from the same equation, same side of the equation. Y equals, I'm going to just simplify it. Y equals, factor it, 2 parentheses x. It's right here, it's positive, so plus 1 parentheses square it. And then this, negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. That should be it. Okay, so this is my answer. I've just scrolled down now, and it's asking me to graph this. I'm going to actually let you guys graph it, but I'm going to show you how to find the vertex. So the vertex, remember we changed the sign of this one, so it's at negative 1, and then we keep this sign, comma 3, negative 3. And my y-intercepts is when you substitute 0 in for your x value. So y equals 2 times 0 plus 1 squared minus 3. 0 plus 1 is 1, squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 3 is negative 1. So it is touching my y-axis at 0. I substituted it in 0, and I got negative 1. My x-intercepts, you guys are going to actually have to factor this. And I don't know if we can factor it. I would use this equation and factor it. You guys can try. It might work. If it doesn't, we've got to use a quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b. This is a is 2, b is 4, and c is negative 1. So negative b, negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so it's a real number. It's not imaginary. All over 2a, which is 2. I was going to put a. Alrighty, and this is negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus, this is a negative and a negative, 8 all over 4. And this we can kind of simplify to be negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 all over 4. And we can factor out 2 out of every single term. So what we can simplify this to is our x-intercepts are negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 4. So or over 2. So I guess we couldn't actually factor this. And I mean, you can plug that into the calculator. It's approximately negative 2.2250 and positive 0.2250. Check, make sure I'm correct. So I want to just go over the beginning of this application problem that I want you to try. In order to figure this out, you need to know that the height position is 1/2. Your gravity is actually 32 feet per second or 9.8 meters per second, whatever they're using, times your time squared. Only your time is squared. Plus, V naught means your initial vertical velocity. So I wrote it down here. And S naught, or S sub 0, is the initial height. Your vertical velocity is written like this. It's negative, and then your g, as it says down here, is going to be your gravity, acceleration due to gravity, times your time plus v naught, which is your vertical velocity of the object. Okay, so you're going to plug these things in. T in physics is going to be time. T is time. I want you guys to try this out. Have a wonderful day.